Welcome to the Other 165. On this show, we want to talk about what to do when life happens, when things knock you down and discourage you throughout your week. Join us as we discuss how to stay encouraged and develop true relationships of love and discipleship. We hope you enjoy this week's episode. Alrighty, everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Other 165. I have, as always, my one and only favorite co-host, Mr. Joel Hoffman, joining me remotely from the beautiful state of Tennessee. What's up, Joel?
Hey, good morning. Beautiful, beautiful state.
So, having said that, we also want to apologize ahead of time if the video quality is lacking a bit. We had a couple of technical issues this morning, but hopefully we got them all ironed out and it looks nice and sounds nice for you. But we're going to just jump right in to everybody's favorite subject, loving your neighbor.
Oh.
So as we mentioned in the last episode, fully understanding that this is something that is easier said than done, and something that Joel and I have talked about continuously struggling with, because you can easily say, I love my mom, I love my wife, I love my sisters, I love my family, my friends, blah, blah, blah. So for example, I love Joel. It's very easy to love Joel. It is something that comes naturally because we connect, we have similar interests, we have similar views, we enjoy each other's company, each other's conversation.
Yeah.
So, there's always going to be people that it is not a struggle to love. But what we're going to spend a little more time on is those people that maybe it's not so easy to love. And go ahead, Joel.
I don't know, and I think that's beautiful in the sense of me. It's easy for me to love Aaron due to the fact of our common interests, and both of us are willing to sort of try different things in order to help the next person out. So I think, like you said, loving the neighbor is going to be an interesting topic.
Well, and it's funny too. I know we have mentioned it many times in probably every episode so far, but we have, for each other, tried to help each other out with loving certain people that make it sometimes difficult to love them. And that's actually where the whole checkbox thing originated, was just the encouragement towards, like, listen, this person isn't going to check your boxes. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be as easy as me and you get along. So you have to understand that, it's not going to be, every relationship isn't going to be as easy as the next. So it's very nice to have you, Joel, to encourage me, to remind me when I'm thinking this person did this person did that, for you to calm me down and be like, listen, love them anyway. That's what we're called to do. So that brings us to our first Bible verse that we want to read, and it is John 13 verses 34 and 35. And Jesus is actually talking, and he says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you.
Yep.
You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Yeah. So there's a couple of things we'd like to really unpack there. And this is around the time that I believe Peter asked him, was it Peter that was asking him what the most important commandment is?
I believe it was.
And so Jesus basically says, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor, because everything else flows from that. You know, if you love your neighbor, you're not going to murder him. You're not going to covet his oxen. You're not going to steal from him, you know. So, um, so this is the commandment, that we love one another. And just as Jesus loved us. So, kind of the bad news in there is that Jesus loved everybody, no matter who they were, what they did to him.
Yeah.
So we can't try and squeak out of it, Joel, by saying, well, maybe he just meant the people that are nice to me. Maybe he meant just the people that I can easily talk to or agree with.
What? I think, excuse me. I think what's interesting out of that was how, I mean, Christ is by far the best example. He's the person that by far that we strive to be like, and to be like him in the sense of him knowing that the people around him were going to betray him. He still loved them. Um,
Yeah.
and to think of the many different people around him, from the priests, that he basically was doing, helping them with their job because they basically weren't doing their job. Um, and he still loved them. And they were basically spies to try to figure out how to kill him. And if he knew that these people were after him for his head in the sense of death, how dumb is it for me not to love my neighbor just due to the fact that we don't get along at work? Or honestly, like a perfect example is like my wife, after we
Oh
got
boy.
married.
Calm down.
Okay, tone it down. Wow, hope she's not. No, but after we got married, I think that we always use the checkbox situation that Aaron brought up. But after I got married, I expected all these things in the sense of my marriage to be perfect and easy. And there were days where it was hard for me to love my wife because there were things that did not fit what I thought should. And
Mm.
that's where I started to realize how selfish I was in my relationship with my wife. And I think that's where it gets like super interesting, because if if I can't love, you know what I'm saying, especially somebody that God made for me, my wife,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying, then it just shows us something like that, like how foolish I am as a person and an individual. Honestly, how selfish I am because I'm not willing to understand that these people are going to make mistakes just like I am.
So the thing I noticed that you said in there is, you know, Jesus loved all these people that were plotting his murder and his gruesome murder. So, like, what do you think goes through his mind when you're like, I can't love this person? They like ketchup on their hot dogs. You know what I'm saying? Like
So
something so stupid. Obviously, that's a silly example,
no,
but
no, but no,
but
but
all these examples that we come up with, like, what do you think goes through his mind? Like, really? Like, I love these guys that wanted to do horrible things to me, and you're
yeah,
telling me this? Like, come on, man.
no.
It's not that difficult.
Think about how many people, and I mean, honestly, like the best thing about our podcast is just being completely honest. Like we're not out here to offend
Yes,
anybody.
sir.
We're here to encourage. But the thing is, sometimes in the church, we don't like somebody just because of the style of music that they listen to
Mm.
where we're like, oh,
Mhm.
you like Kim Walker? I'm all about John PT.
Dude,
You know what I'm saying?
stop it.
But no, but
Don't
you think about
don't
how
go
many
there.
people like, because I remember back in the days, in our youth days, my youth pastor at that time was Ryan Fleming. He's a pastor now in Miller for Revolution Church, and he would always use hip hop in the inner city Gary to reach people, and people would be affected to be like, and it wasn't like he wasn't using secular hip hop; he was using Christian hip hop to where he would like tell people, listen to the lyrics, understand the struggle that they're going through, and go from there. And people would like were so offended. But the thing is, I never saw him, excellent example, hate them due to the fact of him following God's mission in a sense of changing those lives that were able to be reached through that music. So then that way he can sit down and show God's love. And he
Mm.
loved all the neighbors. When I say neighbors in this situation, all the neighbor churches that did not agree with his message. But it was beautiful.
So that actually brings us to the other half of that, the other verse um, that I wanted to unpack about that. And when he says, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." So that got me thinking, um, like asking myself the question: would I say that people would see my life, how I treat others, the way that I carry myself, and think he's a follower of Christ or not? So that's really something to keep in mind. In my opinion, you know what I mean. Because we talked about talking to others about God and spreading the gospel, and
Yeah.
that is important. But your behavior outside of that is very important too, because what if, Joel, you're a stranger, say you just started at our job, and I come up to you, I say, "Hi, my name is Aaron. It's great to meet you. I go to such and such church. I believe in God. It is a great life changing thing. I think you should do it." And I make this very good positive impact on you, and you start thinking, "Man, this guy, this guy loves people. Like, I want to go to church with him. I want to, I want to be around him more."
Mhm.
But then you see me
Wait,
going
what?
to, you see me driving around on my forklift, cursing people out, belittling people, screaming in faces, putting fingers in people's chests. Then, it kind of minimizes what I have done before,
Yeah.
because I'm not I'm not living a life that shows that I am a follower of Christ.
No, true. And honestly, I think that's where, how you say, me and you have always been a firm believer in the sense of letting our light shine. We don't need to let people know, like, verbally, like, I'm a Christian, that
Mhm.
people see it. And I honestly can say that me and you, people will always see Christ in us. There are days at work that, you know what I'm saying, get stressful. And that's where I think like a lot of people don't realize when the days do get stressful, there are some times where Aaron will pull to the side and he'll just be like, "Dude, today." And honestly, and that's like, I remember I was having a conversation with one of the forklift drivers, and I told him, I said, for our company to, in order to make the sales that they do, there's got to be some pressure. So with that pressure comes stress. I said, but it's going to be a matter of how we handle it. And I think that's where loving thy neighbor is beautiful because we don't realize that sometimes the person next to us, our neighbor, has a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and they can't handle it. So the way they
Mm.
handle it is just being honestly sometimes annoying. And that just makes it to where it makes it hard to love them. But that's where I mean, listen, there were certain people that I'm sure that Christ chose his disciples were not like amazing, that I'm sure some of them probably got annoying, that God still loved them. And I'm sure that
Mhm.
those disciples had to work with each person. And God chose, I mean, these were people that Christ chose that some people would never have chosen.
Right.
And he loved them no matter what. So I mean your scenario is perfect, I think, in the sense of somebody understanding that somebody basically in the first day saying this is who I am, and by day three showing that's not who I am seeing in you.
Right. And I read I read a book, and I don't remember which. I read so many books I can't remember where everything comes from. But so it was talking about relationship, And with this particular example, he was using a marriage. So we always, the preacher at church will tell us, like, you are a child of God. And that's absolutely true. And as a child of God, like, you can feel all the great things that come along with it. But it can also almost, I don't want to say this and say something sacrilegious, but it can lead, I think, to a sense of entitlement. And it's like, you can't treat me like that. I'm a child of God. But what you don't understand is the other person that you're saying should be treating you a certain way, they're a child of God too. So we're all children of God. So that's why, the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. We should all be treated like children of God because we all are. And that's something that's kind of easy to forget sometimes. Like it's easy to remember, like, I am a child of God, so I deserve this, this, and this. But everyone else is also a child of God, so they also deserve the same this that you feel entitled to.
And I think a good situation when you think of that or something like that, those that accept Christ, we've accepted Christ, that technically we should be willing to take the beating and to be able to love our neighbor more because Christ took that beating from those that did not love him. So technically, us taking that beating in a sense of understanding that there are going to be people out there that are not going to agree, that are not going to treat us right, and we have a person as an example that is going to give us the strength, to give us the words, to give us the patience to be able to go through that fight, that war that that person is trying to go into us as a battle. So that way at the end, they're going to remember that they loved me no matter how bad I treated them.
With loving your neighbor, it is something that is, has varying degree of difficulties, but it doesn't, like, nothing really excuses you out of it. And again, that's kind of the bad news about it, because what about the people that have done hurtful, damaging things? And understand that I'm not saying, like, if someone stabbed you to go up and, I don't know, it's a bad example, but it's just, I know there's people out there that are thinking right now, like, well, you don't understand what this person did. You don't understand what this person did to me. And I have another Bible verse to read. And so it's Matthew 5:46. And again, it's Jesus talking. It says, "For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same?" And so, if you don't know, tax collectors back in Bible times, like, they were scum of the earth. Like, they're traitors against their own people. So, like, Matthew was a tax collector.
Yeah.
And he was disowned by his family because he was a tax collector. He was hated in the community. And because basically his job was to collect all the taxes from these poor farmers and fishermen to give to the Romans, to Caesar. So all of his friends and neighbors looked at him like, you're the enemy, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you're a traitor. And like, it's actually really well portrayed in The Chosen. I think the guy who plays Matthew does an excellent job. But yeah, man, it's like, basically what he's saying is, like, anyone can love people that love them back.
Yeah.
But the true reward is loving someone that you think doesn't deserve it, or that has done wrong by you, or, whatever. And that's what we're really going for. You know what I mean? To to be more like Christ. And again, Christ loved the worst of the worst.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like, honestly, like, you think of some relationships. I remember some relationships in youth, where you used a good word in the sense of, Matthew was a traitor. He, and I know with like some people, it makes it hard for them to love thy neighbor due to the fact that honestly, like, there'll be. I remember in the youth group there were some kids that the one guy would date a young lady, and then next thing you know, or something like that, the girl would break up and date his best friend. So those two, I remember it made it very hard for them to love each other because, like, first off, like that's dirty, and I remember as a great example seeing in the youth group at that time I was leader in the youth group that these two young men they did not like each other. They hated each other due to the fact of that situation because of the bro code. And it was weird to see how their relationship in a sense of forgiveness came out of it, but it took time. But the one young man later just was like, I made my decision and I, did what I, you know, he basically made his decision in the sense of breaking up with the young lady, and the young lady made her decision in the sense of liking his friend. And it was weird in the sense of the forgiveness out of it due to the fact of them just having a conversation and being
Mm.
open about what happened and honest about the situation. And they both were able to let each other know where they were hurt at, and it healed. And I think honestly, sometimes in loving thy neighbor, there are two people hurt that have not opened and let the other person know about the wounds so that way they can heal. And they just sort of hold on to this bitterness so it never heals. And some of it can be healed just off of a conversation. A lot of it can be healed through forgiveness.
Amen. Yeah, that kind of brings me um, to my inspiration video. It makes
Mm,
me think about that. And again, I don't really want to go into the full story, but I held a grudge against this guy for like over a year, and it just, I mean, I'm not gonna say it consumed me because like I was just mad at him. You know what I mean? Like it didn't rule my life, but I was mad at him and I was hurt
yeah,
and it was causing damage. And finally, like I said in the original video, it's like you get to a point where I would say like, but I'm right. I'm right. He
yeah,
needs to come to me. And finally, I just realized, like, well, like, I kept feeling like God was saying to me, like, do you want to be right or do you want to be healed? Take your pick, dude. And in so many arguments, grudges, um, any kind of damaged relationship could could come down to, do you want to be right? Do you want to be justified? Do you want to be fill in the blank? Or do you want to be healed?
amen.
And sometimes you got to get to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. Like it doesn't matter that I'm right or I feel like I'm right or blah blah blah. Like I need this out of me. Like I need to be free of this.
Yeah,
And once I once I talked to him, it was, I had misread the situation and I spent all that time being mad over nothing. So,
no. And
it's
honestly, how
it
many people do misread a situation? And
yeah,
honestly, that's where that whole conversation and being honest, and honestly, myself as an example, it's easier for me to, how you say, honestly for most people it's easier to bottle it up and just be like, I'm a man and I'm just gonna suck it up. I'm not gonna let anybody know that they bother me. No, honestly, it's better for you just to, because Aaron said it, and it's a true thing that honestly, when you do find the truth, or when you do see that that person either forgives you or you're able to forgive them and you're able to love each other again, a weight is lifted. And it's
Oh my
weird. The
goodness.
it's weird to realize that that invisible
Yes.
weight, it just goes. And I'm sure that day you probably walked through that whole day happier than what you could have because you had that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, man. It was a weight off. And another aspect of when it's kind of an extenuating circumstance. You know what I mean? Like it's already hard enough to love people that, you know, fill in the blank that are mean to you or, you know, just hard to get along with.
Yeah.
Something that has always been an issue with me is um I have at times had a bit of a temper.
Hmm.
I am very impulsive and I have allowed my emotions to take over. So, honestly, my treatment of people has been very dependent on my mood. And I'm sure this isn't a very rare thing among people. You know what I mean? Like, you wake up, you haven't had your coffee yet, and my wife took the last scone. Guess what? I'm flipping the table over. Not in my house, not really. Just joking. But you know what I'm saying? Like when you're in a bad mood or when you're already, you know, the the water bill's late, you know, money when money's tight, just stretch that thin.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's easy when um outside forces are attacking and attacking and attacking. And then you got the Joker that you already don't get along with coming up disrespecting.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, no. That's a
So it's like
lot.
what do you do? It's like what do you do right now?
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to just yell, scream, put the finger in the chest, listen here, dude.
I like the
but, but just one thing I've tried to work on. I've really been working on this, and I've come to you with this quite a few times. It's just not. Well, first of all, to slow down
Yeah.
because with the impulsive nature that I have very quick reactions, and a
Yeah.
lot of times very emotional, and a lot of times it's very angry. So anger and impulse do not mix very well at all.
Mhm.
So the first thing that I've tried to do is to just slow down because what I've realized is when I'm quick to anger that I say something I shouldn't have said, I do something I shouldn't have done, I hurt someone's feelings, you know, there's all this collateral damage
Yeah.
that is involved. And I usually, when I calm down, when the emotion subsides, I have to apologize to someone. I have to clean up a mess. And you see A, which is the emotional outburst. You
Yeah.
see C, the collateral damage aftermath cleanup. And you want to, like, what I want to do is find a way to slow down enough to where I can take B out of the equation, which is all the craziness. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I slow down enough to get to that emotional place or that non-emotional place where I'm apologetic and I realize it wasn't that big of a deal and I'm calm.
Yeah.
Like that is my end game to try to when something like that hits me, especially when there's all this extenuating circumstances, to just stop, take a deep breath. I like it's so dumb, but the whole counting to 10 thing actually does work.
Oh,
It not totally, but if I feel it, if I feel the rage rising, I kind of
right.
sit back and like it, anyone at work if you ever see this, if people from work are watching this, if you ever see me on my forklift and I'm just like I am counting to 10 because I am trying to not rage at somebody because I know that it's just I'm allowing my emotions to get the better of me and I am allowing a situation to just fly off the handle and make me in turn fly off the handle, but I don't want to do
No,
that.
true.
So a lot of times I try and calm down and I try to let it simmer
Yeah.
before I react. And I kind of man, I wish I don't want to say it's easy for you, but it's from where I'm sitting
Mm.
and like what I've observed of you, it seems like you have a much easier time. Like, what is your way of dealing with conflict like that? Because it seems like you're able to stay more calm than I am.
No, I mean you basically said the best part of like the whole "Bleh," that's how I would react, and it honestly it didn't solve anything. Like I'm not a perfect person. A lot of times I would bottle it up, and the person that suffered the most was my wife because I would go home, take my problems, and she was the one that would have to hear it because of one stupid thing she wouldn't do became a big problem that I was bottling up. But later on, I just started realizing that, and everybody's got their own thing that they do, but through running, uh, and like it sounds goofy, but I've always been taught like if like a honestly like my dad would make me write a problem on the bottom of my running shoe, and I would go
Hmm.
run, and by the time I came back running from it, and it would be one of them washable markers I'd put on the bottom of my shoe. By the time I came back from my run, it was no longer there. And he
Wow,
would
that's
say,
powerful, dude.
yeah, so
I
it
love
was
that, man.
so if you run, you walk, it was a good way of looking at the bottom of your shoe and be like, it disappeared. It's somewhere else. And so now you're in a better place. You're in a different place. And it did help me out a lot of times or something like that. There were times I would put people's names on there because I was like, this person ticked me off. And I'd put it, and it was just the way it helped. And then, but from there, he would always tell me that if I'm gonna write somebody's name or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Don't sit down, do it on my knees. And it's a sort of a sign of submission when you're on your knees. And there's no way really or something like that that you can't like. There were days where before I'd even write a person's name that I would just wind up praying and asking God for help. And there's I still struggle, you could say, with certain situations or whatever, something like that. Like a big thing that I struggle with in the sense of you could say I'll forgive anybody, I love anybody, but um, what do you do when you've forgiven that person and then they do the same thing again to you later on?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Is there a double forgiveness card here? but but
I have a verse for that, but you're not gonna want to hear it.
no, I want to hear it.
Well, it's when Peter's asking, "How many times are we supposed to forgive? 7?" Jesus like, "Ha, how about 70 times 7?"
7. And it's the truth because I think so many times like us, like I'll be straight up, we put ourselves so high up to where we
Mm,
feel like we're invincible. People need to respect us. People should not do us wrong because we're followers of Christ. But the thing is something like that, like we're the ones that technically, I mean, I'm saying this with pure honesty that that should be able to take it. And I'm
yeah,
saying this
amen.
because when our example was beaten for the truth, and sometimes we're getting abused from our lies, in all honesty, that we didn't love our neighbor right, so we need to go
Mhm.
ask for forgiveness. But when it comes to us loving our neighbor and they did us wrong, that's when we just have to set the example. Because I mean, I'm sure Aaron would say the same thing, that if we go and we just love somebody no matter how wrong they did us, that if they come to Christ later on, what a great testimony it is to hear them say that it was because he loved me even though I did him wrong.
Yeah. Amen. It just popped into my head.
Oh, I like
Years
this.
and years ago, I uh, I went to this church, and the pastor was preaching about offense, and he was talking about how, when we're like when we get saved and we get baptized, like you die to your old self, you
Mm,
become a new creation in Christ.
yeah.
And he is like, some of you are getting offended because people are making fun of you or doing hurtful things to you. But guess what? You can't hurt a dead man. Like,
Ooh,
I'm dead to myself, so you can't hurt me. It's like,
hey,
whoa. And
hey,
that just brought
that's
it
not
to me.
true.
Like, it's crazy, but it's true.
Mhm. No, it's true because like when we, you know what I'm saying, loving our neighbor, and honestly, loving our neighbor is part of our 165 in the sense of
Amen.
outside of the church walls that we show our love to everybody in different ways. And it's just crazy to realize like how basically how much easier it is to love somebody than it is to hate somebody because like we said when we hate somebody we put these invisible weights on us and when we love them we're not carrying anything.
Amen. With loving our neighbor, I think the one of the biggest things that we need to talk about is the things we do or do not say to people. And that might not make sense, but as we get into it, it'll hopefully make more sense. But, the Bible says in Proverbs that death and life are in the power of the tongue.
Mm,
And again, when I was talking about, being impulsive and having a temper, um, I started to also realize like the things that would fly out of my mouth. And again, like if you're going to tell someone that you're a follower of Christ and that they should be too, and how awesome it is, and then, the next day be saying just destructive things to
yeah,
others, like it's something that I've really worked on. And it's very, very important to be in control of what we do and do not say to others.
one of my sisters in the lord, it's crazy like seeing the love that she has for her neighbor and this is going to touch on some people's because I've never experienced it but when um, her husband walked out of her life with her kids, um, I never saw hatred. And it was weird because I hated more than she did. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she just was like honest to where she was like, um, if you still want to be friends with them, I completely understand. I'm not here for you to take my side and not be friends with him because of the decision he made. And it was weird that she was thinking of love for him still to figure out ways to where he can feel comforted when he abandoned her. And it was like,
That is very
yeah,
that's
and
admirable.
yeah, no, it is. And I think like most of the people that are going to watch the podcast, you guys are going to think that we're just using our small little situations, but there are situations you can say in the church and stories of something like that that we know of, and some that we can't say because it's not like we got the permission. Like with her, I know she would never like it's a testimony. And the thing is, it's a beautiful, powerful testimony that she still has forgiven him and still raises her kids by herself and still loves him with the love of God. And it was weird because, and I mean, I'll be honest, for a year, I bottled and hated because I don't like seeing kids abandoned. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? That was my biggest hate. It was not so much like I felt bad for her, but the
Yeah,
kid is the biggest thing I felt bad for. And
right.
then to see the love of God just come out of her to where she just would, like, I'll never forget it. And she's a worship leader. And you would hear like the love just come out. And she would just basically, like, from her prayer and her worship is what basically helped her in the sense of, you could say, in like basically the recovery in the sense of forgiveness from there. And it's the it's beyond beautiful.
Well, that kind of brings me to I will draw off of that without getting too into that story, but what do you say to someone when they tell you stories like this? Like, there's a guy at work, I love him to death, and he is just going through terrible things.
Mm.
And it just like it's so crazy that he'll come in and tell me one thing and I'll be like, "Oh man, that's horrible." And then the next week, something else, and it just keeps piling up and piling up. And I don't know what to say to him. Like, I love you. I am praying for you. I will
Yeah,
pray for you anytime you need. Like, call me up, whatever, and I'll be there for you.
yeah,
But it's like, what do you say when something that you have no frame of reference for, no way to give advice or anything, and you just kind of sit there, like when my dad passed away.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like people don't know what to say to you. Like I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you.
yeah.
But then it's like even Julie would tell me, she's like, is there anything I can do? Like I don't know what to say to you. Like I have not been through this. I don't know what to do. And all of that to say, I have kind of learned through all of that the power of silence.
No,
And
very true.
by that I mean some people going through stuff like that, um, they're not they're not coming to you for advice. They're
Yeah,
not coming to you to fix their world. Like sometimes they just want to be heard. Like
yeah,
sometimes they just want to know that they have someone that they can come to and talk to. And I had this conversation with my sister a while back, and I don't even remember what the problem was, but she told me that she was thinking that my main frustration with people, like when I really butt heads with people or when I really get angry at someone, it can be traced back to not feeling heard.
mm,
And it's like not like a full light bulb moment, but like it started to make sense. Like, well, yeah, if I'm saying something to someone and I feel like they haven't heard me, like that's very frustrating. And I realized what I was saying is very true for myself. Is like in that scenario where um my dad passed away and people don't really know how to handle me and people don't really know what to say to me. It's like, I don't want you to say anything. Like, I just want you to listen. Like, I just want someone to listen to me and for me to feel like I'm being heard. And
yeah.
do not discount the gravity of just being an ear. You don't always have to talk. Like if you're feeling like you have some like a word for them or you have great advice, then by all means. But if you're sitting there and you're like, man, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah.
Like the my advice, I love you. I am
Yep.
here for you. I'm
Mhm.
praying for you.
No, yeah.
And then other than that, stop talking and just listen because a lot of times they just want to know that someone will take time out of their day to listen to them.
No, true. And I think silence is beautiful because I remember like it's weird. Like I remember a time where I had to be silent, and it was a situation where I did not know how to handle, and I
Were
struggled being
you
silent.
were you playing the quiet game? Joel's the best at the quiet game.
I owe Aaron a couple pops. Anyways,
Sorry.
but no, it
Continue.
was weird. No, but so before no, no,
I really derailed that, didn't I? I'm sorry.
it was hilarious though. No, but what was hilarious? No, not hilarious. But what's funny about when you're saying being silent, I remember being at my dad's funeral and my father pastored a church in Michigan City, and people showed up to his funeral that hated him And I'm like, what in the world? What? Like it was weird because I was like, he loved them no matter what. He would always like, and like when I say they hated him, they basically did not agree with the way he did ministry. My father was very
Right. Yeah.
big on the homeless ministry, and a lot of people didn't
Hmm.
agree with the homeless people coming in because of the way they smelled and this that. But my father, when he struggled with alcohol, he was homeless, so he understood where they came from. So some people didn't agree with it, and everybody has their own opinions on it. But in my opinion, it's something like that. If you can't love everybody, you know what I'm saying, then you're not a follower of Christ. But
Hmm.
it's weird that when they came, and like when you were saying be silent, I didn't realize it until like now. Like when they came, all I did was they came and you could see like they were hurting more than me because they had regret and
Oh
some
yeah.
baggage that they were holding on. And
Hmm.
they didn't even say, I'm sorry for your loss. They just came and gave me a hug. And
Yeah.
I could, you know what I'm saying? The silence, instead of me coming back and saying, like, first off, if I came back with something negative at that time, it was not going to help. And
Yeah.
also, because like you're saying, sometimes we realize as Christians that Christ is the only one that has the answer, all the
Mm.
answers. We don't
Amen.
have all the answers. So sometimes this being shut and just listening will give
Yes,
us
sir.
time for Him to either speak through us to them in the sense of us just being there for them, or will later give us the words to give to them. And I think Aaron said is a great example at work where sometimes people just want to sit down, talk about their struggles, and um, they'll just listen, and
Hmm.
it's beautiful. That's the best part.
This is gonna sound so rude, but our last point that we want to talk about is basically everything we have been talking about boils down to it's not about you.
Nope.
I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to Joel. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to convict people but it's true.
Yep.
Loving people is not about you.
Mm-mm.
It's not about what have they done for you? What have they done to you? It's not what are you going to get out of loving them? It's
Nope.
about loving them because Jesus first loved us when we didn't deserve it and
Yep.
we didn't do anything for it, but he gave it freely. And
Mm.
all he's asking in return is that you do the same for others.
Yep.
And it's just, I needed to get over myself, to
Yep.
stop asking everyone around me to check the boxes that I thought they needed to fill, and to get past the what I deserve, what I need, what I. And then I shut up and I just started listening to people. And not only has it made me like obviously a better listener, I feel, but when when you see the look on someone's face when they're pouring their heart out to you and you're just sitting there and you're listening and you say, I love you.
Yeah.
Just just the way that you can be there for somebody is so much more powerful sometimes than any advice you could give them. Just seeing the look on someone's face when they're going through all these things
Yep.
and you're not trying to fix their problem, or you're not trying to impose your will on them, and you're just sitting there and you're listening and you say, because you have nothing else to say, but sometimes the best things to say are, I love you,
Mm.
I'm praying for you,
Yep.
I'm here for you, you have my number if you need me, and just be there for someone. And just like the look on their face sometimes, it's like, wow, like that brings me peace. That feels like freedom to me. And I hope it's the same I hope they're getting the same thing out of it as I am.
Yep.
But just knowing that I took myself out of the equation so that someone else could be blessed just
Yep.
by thinking, man, someone took time out of their day just to listen and is taking time out of their day to pray for me.
Mhm.
That is powerful.
Yeah, no. And like you said, it's not about me.
And the next episode that we're gonna do kind of follows that idea of it's not about me, and it's going to be all about surrender. And when I tell you that fully, and I mean to whatever degree that really is, of fully surrendering to the will and the love of God, is just no other way to say it other than it is utterly life changing and life
Amen.
affirming. And
And
so we're really excited to dig into that. It's gonna be a good one.
oh yeah, especially surrendering, which, man, just thinking about it, I'll keep it for next episode.
Yeah, because the goal is more of him and less of me.
Mm.
And so we're going to be working hard to prepare for that, to bring that to you. And we thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
tuning into this episode. And we love you. We're praying for you.
And
We hope that you're getting some good things out of this podcast. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and leave us a comment. You can send us an email. We have a Gmail. It is the other 165 hours at gmail.com. If you're not into the whole social media thing, or you don't want people to see what you're writing, you can send us an email. It'll come right to me, and me and Joel will be the only ones who see it. And just whatever you need, we will be here for you.
amen.
And we will see you again in 2 weeks. All right, have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And we hope you continue to join us on our mission to not only live for God for 3 hours a week at church, but also for our other 165. Have a blessed day.